Unmasking Trevor Milton, the truth behind Nikola's false promises. In the world of electric vehicles, innovation often captures headlines and investor dollars alike. Cutting-edge technology promises to redefine transportation, while visionary entrepreneurs drive these revolutions. But what happens when that vision is built on shaky ground, a house of cards propped up not by engineering achievements, but by deceptive theatrics? The story of Trevor Milton, founder of Nikola Corporation, offers a gripping case study on how hype, manipulation, and unchecked faith can distort markets and cost ordinary investors billions. Trevor Milton came onto the scene in the late 2010s as a charismatic entrepreneur with a bold vision, building revolutionary hydrogen-powered trucks to compete with and arguably overtake established giants like Tesla and traditional diesel manufacturers. Milton portrayed Nikola as the next big disruptor in the clean energy vehicle sector, a company on the cusp of transforming America's long-haul freight industry. Investors quickly took notice. Nikola was founded in 2014 and went public in 2020 via a reverse merger with VectoIQ Acquisition Corp., a special-purpose acquisition company, SPAC. This method allowed Nikola to raise substantial capital rapidly, bypassing a traditional IPO process. By June 2020, Nikola's market capitalization had soared to roughly $13 billion, despite not having produced a single vehicle for sale. To many, the company embodied the promise of cleaner, hydrogen-fueled transportation, an area of growing interest given environmental concerns and policy pushes for decarbonization. But behind the scenes, the reality was vastly different from the image Trevor Milton pitched to investors, analysts, and the media. The most infamous moment in this saga came in September 2020, when Nikola released a promotional video showing its prototype pickup truck, the Badger, rolling down a hill supposedly under its own power. The video was meant to demonstrate the vehicle's powertrain in action. But astute observers noted something troubling. The Badger wasn't actually moving under its own propulsion. Instead, it was rolling downhill, with no indication that its electric motors were engaged. In other words, the company was faking a demonstration to embellish its technological capabilities. The importance of this moment lies not just in a single staged video, but in what it symbolized about Nikola's broader approach to technology claims, investor relations, and corporate governance, a pattern of misleading behavior entwined with Milton's public persona. Let's pull back further and understand exactly how Nikola positioned itself. Trevor Milton painted a picture of a company mastering the difficult challenge of hydrogen fuel cell technology. Hydrogen fuel cells produce electricity by combining hydrogen and oxygen with water vapor as the only emission, offering the hope of clean, long-range trucking without the lengthy recharging times associated with battery electric vehicles. Nikola claimed it was producing Class 8 trucks powered by hydrogen fuel cells, capable of traveling hundreds of miles between refueling stops. However, producing a reliable hydrogen truck involves overcoming immense technical and infrastructure hurdles, manufacturing expensive fuel cells, creating durable high-pressure hydrogen tanks, and building hydrogen refueling stations nationwide. Despite these substantial obstacles, Nikola presented itself as further along in development than was credible. The company's first prototype, the Nikola 1, was unveiled in 2016, but was reportedly non-functional, with many parts borrowed from existing vehicles or non-working mock-ups. Over time, the company's promotional materials promised working prototypes and imminent production dates, fueling enthusiasm and a soaring stock price. Investors poured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Between its SPAC listing and subsequent private funding rounds, Nikola raised approximately $1 billion in 2020 alone. Yet amidst the fanfare, independent journalists and investors began probing Nikola's claims. Questions arose regarding whether actual trucks existed, the company's intellectual property ownership, and whether hydrogen infrastructure was ever going to arrive at scale for Nikola's vehicles. The turning point came on September 10, 2020, when a detailed investigative report by Hindenburg Research was published. Hindenburg is a well-known short-selling firm that profits when a company's stock declines. Their report presented evidence that Nikola was an intricate fraud built on false claims and staged demonstrations. This report pointed to multiple red flags, including the September Badger video, which showed the truck rolling but not powered, contradicting Nikola's claims. Allegations that the Nikola 1 and Nikola 2 trucks' prototypes were not fully functional vehicles, but essentially shells. Claims that company leadership, including Milton, exaggerated technical achievements and misrepresented employee qualifications. Allegations of corporate mismanagement and safety violations at Nikola's manufacturing sites. The market reaction was swift. Within days, Nikola's stock plummeted from a high of over $70 per share to under $20, erasing billions in market value. Trevor Milton's reputation took a nosedive along with the company's share price. Nikola denied the accusations initially, and Milton maintained his innocence. But the evidence mounting against the company was too substantial to ignore. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, and the Department of Justice initiated investigations into Nikola's public statements and fundraising practices. Milton resigned as executive chairman in September 2020, just days after the Hindenburg report. Federal prosecutors charged him in July 2021 with securities fraud and wire fraud. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, Milton allegedly tricked investors by embellishing Nikola's technology and business prospects, raising over $700 million under false pretenses. At trial, the government presented emails, internal communications, and witness testimony showing Milton directed misleading statements and staged events to support his claims. One particularly damning piece of evidence was the recorded phone call in which Milton allegedly boasted about misleading investors. The core charges centered on two types of fraud. 1. Securities fraud. Milton knowingly made false statements to inflate Nikola's stock price, inducing investors to buy shares. 2. Wire fraud. Milton used electronic communications to disseminate misleading information, including emails, videos, and social media posts. In September 2022, after a lengthy federal trial in U.S. District Court in Phoenix, Milton was found guilty on multiple counts of securities and wire fraud. He was sentenced to prison and ordered to pay restitution to defrauded investors. Beyond criminal proceedings, Nikola underwent internal reforms. The board replaced outgoing executives, shifted corporate governance policies, and placed greater emphasis on transparency. The company scaled back its ambitious hydrogen plans, focusing instead on battery electric trucks and partnerships with established manufacturing firms. But what does this Nikola saga mean for the everyday person watching at home? And why did millions entrust their savings to a company that had not delivered a single commercial vehicle? First, it's a stark reminder of the risks inherent in speculative investing, especially in emerging technologies. The electric vehicle market has become a magnet for attention, with high-valuation startups promising to upend decades-old industries. It's a sector where future potential weighs heavily on current investor sentiment. Second, the story highlights the limitations of due diligence and regulatory oversight in fast-moving markets. SPAC mergers like Nikola's gained popularity for their speed and low disclosure requirements, creating fertile ground for hype and unverified claims. Between March and September 2020, Nikola's stock surged over 500%, in part riding the wave of market enthusiasm for green tech. Third, it exposes how charismatic founders can shape narratives that override facts. Milton's skill in crafting compelling stories, striking confident media appearances, and associating with well-known figures like former General Motors CEO Mark Royce helped project an aura of legitimacy. But confidence can be manipulated, and in Nikola's case, it masked a lack of deliverable products. Finally, it raises questions about hydrogen fuel cell technology's viability in trucking. While hydrogen holds promise, particularly for long-haul applications where fast refueling matters, the industry's infrastructure challenges remain significant. Nikola's failed attempt underscored how difficult it is to move beyond concept to robust commercial deployment. The broader lesson reverberates in capital markets worldwide. Investors must balance optimism about transformative technology with sober scrutiny of operational realities. The SEC has since tightened rules around SPAC disclosures, and heightened scrutiny applies to companies claiming breakthrough innovations. Nikola's share price, which once flirted with $70, lingered below $10 for much of 2022 and 2023. The company struggled to regain investor trust, while competitors like Tesla, with proven production capabilities, surged ahead. The myth of Nikola's hydrogen trucks became a cautionary tale, a warning against hype unchecked by evidence. This saga also drew attention to the role of short sellers as market watchdogs. Hindenburg Research's expose, often vilified by those it targets, provided critical transparency. Their research involved obtaining internal documents and interviews with former Nikola employees, revealing discrepancies that more traditional analysts missed. As of mid-2024, Nikola continues to operate, pivoting towards battery electric vehicles and partnering with pre-existing manufacturing firms like Iveco. The company's future remains uncertain, but the damage inflicted by its initial deception is undeniable. At its core, the Trevor Milton and Nikola episode is a story about misinformation, market psychology, and the allure of disruption. It shows how, in a world hungry for technological breakthroughs, the boundary between visionary entrepreneurship and fraud can blur. The mechanics here were brutally simple. Stage impressive demonstrations, inflate technical claims, leverage market sentiment, and investors bought in without sufficient skepticism. Economically, this case also exemplifies the volatility created by speculative bubbles in sectors involving emerging technology. The injection of billions into Nikola contributed in small part to broader market volatility around green technologies in 2020, highlighting how individual corporate failures can ripple outward. At the end of the day, Nikola is a cautionary emblem of the dangers when flashy marketing and charismatic leadership substitute for substance. It underscores the necessity of transparency, regulatory vigilance, and rigorous independent evaluation in financial markets, especially amid transformative technological waves. Trevor Milton's fall from celebrated innovator to convicted fraudster remains a stark reminder that in the rapidly evolving $250 billion global electric vehicle market, not every pioneer is genuine, and that investors must look beyond showmanship to the hard data fueling real technological progress. If you found this story interesting, hit that like button and subscribe so we can keep making these videos. Tomorrow, we are diving into a story that is just as shocking. Billy McFarland, the psychology behind the Fire Festival disaster. You will not want to miss it. I will see you there.